Everybody. I believe you guys can hear me very well, and we'll be starting for today. So today we'll be talking about Terraform. What is Terraform? How do we use Terraform? And every other thing that involves infrastructure as a code. Firstly, let me start with the concept of infrastructure as a code, which we did last time. So last time we talked about infrastructure as a code um, in terms of biceps. Let me get our repo. So in terms of biceps, in terms of which one again do we use? I think ARM templates. We used ARM templates
I'm
also.
complete.
Good.
Yes.
So one of the can you guys just give me a brief of what you understand about biceps, ARM templates before we move to Terraform? I'm with you. Anybody? A brief of what you understand in ARM templates, Terraform, and sorry, ARM template and biceps. Benga, you can unmute yourself and talk.
Okay. So I'm templates, I think, uses a JSON format
Hmm.
and and bicep. And from what I could, when I practiced then, I think bicep was a little bit less complicated compared to the ARM template. But the bicep rather uses JSON format as a syntax, and it has a fewer lines of code to build a resource on the Azure cloud setup.
Okay,
So that's the little I can remember. And the format is dot bicep.
okay,
Dot
that's good.
bicep. Yes.
That's good. Uh, Sean, do you want to say anything? In addition, you can unmute yourself and talk if you have anything to say. In addition,
Not at the moment, sir.
okay, no problem. Thank you. Okay, so from what Benga talked about, in that he talked about templates being a JSON file, in that you have to fill in the parameters just like what we have here. This for resource group, this for storage accounts, and also this for virtual machine. In that you have to fill in the details in a JSON format to deploy for ARM templates. And in comparing that to Biceps, in which we have a more formalized code that we can work with, like you having your main.biceps code, uh, and it looks more of a friendly code than a JSON format of um, ARM templates. Also, that's good and really appreciated. So today we will go to Terraform. So I will start with Terraform process. So what is Terraform? So from our documentation we did, I sent last class. I talked about Terraform. Terraform is owned by HashiCorp organization. That's um, organization that owns Terraform. It's called HashiCorp. So this is it. So it's an organization called HashiCorp. I think it's owned by IBM. I think I owned by IBM also. They are the one that own Terraform as a code. So it's a stack kind of. So Terraform is used to write infrastructure as a code for both different cloud services like Amazon Web Services, Azure, GCP Terraform, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, and so on and so forth. They use Terraform to write the code. So to create the infrastructure. So meaning that what Terraform literally does, and this is the concept, you write your code is run on Terraform servers, let's say Terraform server or application, which compiles your code. After compiling your code, it sends your code in a REST API to call Azure API or your cloud service API. Like for instance, if you are writing it for Azure, let me just give you a brief of that. This is Azure, Terraform code for Azure, for instance. Now this is for to create a resource group. Now, now for this thing to work, after you finish initializing and so on and so forth, it builds up that code and it calls Azure API. So when you are configuring your Terraform code, it starts with number one, which provider I am going to use for this code. I'm using Azure RM. That means it's going to be calling Azure Resource Manager API to perform the actions. The only thing you will do in this situation is that you are writing the code, the Terraform code. This is the physical code that you have with you, but that code is being translated into API calls in which Terraform calls Azure API, Azure Resource Manager API to say, okay, this person wants to create a resource group. Create this resource group. This is the name. This is the this thing and this one. So in the back end of everything, it is translated into something like a ARM template. Note, I said in the back end. In the back end of everything that we are doing here, it is translated into a ARM template, which is sent to Azure Resource Manager, which then creates the infrastructure. Please get the concept. One, you are just writing the code on your local machine, and that's everything. Once you initialize it and you do your Terraform plan and Terraform apply, what it does is that it converts everything you have in your Terraform code into a backend ARM template, which in which it uses to call Azure Resource Manager API to now create that your resource in Azure cloud. If you are doing for AWS also, it uses that same process. It converts everything you have in your Terraform code, initialize it, and move it to call AWS Resource Manager and create the resources for you. So that's everything Terraform does, kind of. So Terraform doesn't go to your cloud infrastructure and do its own things. No, it follows what you have created, calls the endpoints, and the resources are created. Now, for instance, let me now give you a brief of how it works. Now, we want to create resources and so on and so forth. So, number one, we have the place of the configuration of the application as of the resources you want to create. Firstly, let's start with it. You have Terraform required providers. In these providers, it is talking of which provider am I using here. I am using Azure Resource Manager, meaning that this code in this part is talking mainly to Azure Cloud. Look at, we having Azure Cloud here. Everything I am going to be doing in this Terraform code is relating to Azure Cloud, Azure RM. You can see the provider majorly is Azure Cloud. Please note. After that, you have the source. Source is HashiCorp / Azure RM. So let me give you a feel of everything, a documentation that you can use. Terraform resource group. So please, you can go online also and check these things yourself, so you can be able to have a view of everything. Nothing is hidden. So now this is the documentation for resource group. For instance, I'll be dropping this link on the chat so you can view it also. And drop this on the chat now. So you can see it, Azure Resource Manager. It's showing you, okay, you want to create a resource group in Azure. This is the block of code you need. It tells you, okay, what is this talking about? It tells you what is this thing talking about, what is the name, and so on and so forth. So I will explain every one of it for you. Good. Let's go back to our code. So it calls Azure RM to perform that operation as the source. That means the source of the code is HashiCorp Azure Source Manager. This RM means Source Manager. Next thing again you are seeing here is the Terraform version. Terraform version. So there's something I want you to look into again. This Terraform version affects the kind of code you are going to write. Let me just explain it again for you to understand. So this version means that, for instance, iPhone, you have iPhone 1, iPhone 2. Today we have maybe 17 or 18. Um, if you look at it well, there are some applications that can work in iPhone 5. Definitely, I will definitely not work in iPhone 11. You understand? Why? Because of iPhone 5 can be carrying the same iPhone name, but the capacity of what it can do is not up to what iPhone 11 can do. You understand? Even though they bear the same name. So meaning that in Terraform code, sometimes they can bear the same name. All of them, they are all Terraform code and it's working fine. If the version is fine, some of these resources and modules won't work. For instance, it's going to tell you that, for instance, there's a resource called IP map. Yeah, I'm trying to get it. It's just IP resource, IP map or something like that. That resource, 2 years or 3 years ago, it wasn't in Terraform. You understand? It's just a new resource that Azure just created. For instance, Terraform will need to update their code also for the new resources that Azure just created. That one will now give you another version of Terraform code. The old Terraform code won't have that in code imbibed in it to perform that action for that new resource. Let me give you another good example. I don't know if you have heard of Azure Container App. Azure Container App, for instance, was created, is it 2022 or 2023? I'm trying to remember the year, kind of. When it was literally created, as at then, there was no Terraform code for it. When you go to Terraform documentation, which we have here, when you go to Terraform documentation, which we have here, you will see that there was no Azure Container App for it as at then. But now the new Terraform codes are available and the new versions are available. We definitely have that code in them. So that is what all these versions talk about for you to know. So depending on the things your resource you are trying to create, kindly check and ensure that that version is available for that resource. Okay, now we have another resource here, we have provider. So under these features here, you can have something like, if you want to use Azure pipeline where you put your subscription key and so on and so forth, you can place them in this section here, your subscription ID, uh, client ID, if you are using a service principal or something and so forth, all those things can be provided in here. That's for your authentication method. Also, there's something we call um, um, backend storage. So sorry, I'm trying to bring up these points because of we are going to have a practical example of everything along the way. So I just want to mention these key points down. So when you have a backend, for instance, like you have a Terraform code that you want to store the state file, you store the state file in the backend, and you must ensure that the parameters of your backend is written up here in this up section. Yeah, the parameters for your backend. I'll try to get a link for that and also attach it to our chat so you guys can have an overview of it before we get to that part of the class. Now we have a resource we want to create. This resource is called resource group. We want to create a resource group in Azure using Terraform. How do we do it? We have one, I'm creating a resource. That the resource, what resource kind of resource am I creating? Azure Resource Manager resource group. The resource group I'm creating. If I am creating container app, I'll have a different one. For instance, let me show you on that resource that we have function. Uh, I'm trying to see if I can get on that resource. No, no, no. So this one is, you can see it, Azure RM for resource group. This one is for resource group. You can see this one is resource group mainly. Let me create on that one. Let me check on that one again for storage account. Terraform storage account. Storage account Azure. Sorry, I have to be showing you guys the documentation. So when you want to write the code yourself, you should know how to do it. You can see for storage account is writing Azure RM underscore storage account. For different kind of resources, you have to note that they have different this thing in there for them. Also, that source code I was talking about, then can you see the source code here? It's Azure HashiCorp slash Azure RM. So now let's go back. So this is the name of the resource. The resource what we want to create is it's Azure RM resource. This thing that this place that you have example. This example is talking about what name do you want to call this object. Note I use the word object, not the name of the resource group. This object here, what name do I want to call it? I can call it resource group. Resource underscore group. So the name of this object is called resource group. Understand? Now, in this resource group that I want to create, what are the parameters I can pass into it based on the my Azure documentation, Terraform documentation I have here? The parameters I can pass into it, the argument is majorly one, the location. It's not this argument reference. Please, when you are reading documentation, you have argument reference. It tells you that some things are required. You get it? Required, and some are optional. Can you see it? All those things that are required ought to be fed when you are creating that resource. For instance, I want to create a resource group. It is required for me to put in the location, and also it is required for me to put in the name of that resource group I'm creating. Let me just give a sample of it. The resource group is going to be Terraform test. That's the name of the resource group, Terraform test, and I am creating it in West Europe. Now, these are the things that are called required. These two. Now, I can now go back to documentation. It has optional. Optional means things that I can put it in fine or not. Now you have managed by and you have tags. If you have tags that you want to include in your resources that you are creating, you can put in your tags. While we are talking about tags, I'll talk about types of variables and so on and so forth, but don't let us get into it. I just want to show you a brief one on how to create resources. Now you have resource group, the name, location is West Europe. That's everything you need for this Terraform main.tf file. Please, do you understand this to this extent? Anybody's any question on this first one? Anybody's any question? Binga?
Okay, no questions from my own end, but I want to let you know we've been practicing this Terraform with AWS before now. So we just know that we can create resources and we can create resources with AWS. Even with documentations you give us, we just start practicing.
Oh, that's good.
because AWS, yeah, AWS is just easier to their account lasts longer, unlike Azure.
Oh, no, like Azure,
But yeah,
that's
so
that's good.
just yeah, what we're looking forward to is capstone projects. When we are done with touching all of them, uh, just a capstone project where we can put all of them to practice.
Okay, no problem. So now,
Thank you.
in terms of deployment, you guys know how to do the Terraform init.
Terraform apply, Terraform plan, Terraform apply, and
Mm-hmm.
Terraform destroy.
Good.
Terraform validate as well too. So
That's
yes,
it. That's it.
yeah,
That's good. So Terraform
yes,
init, firstly, you have after that. So in this Terraform init, it downloads what is called the Terraform dependencies. You understand?
okay,
That's what
yes,
all these things it's getting. Oh, sorry, I
yeah,
was in the right repository folder. See the Terraform. Is it Terraform? Okay. Folder name of the folder is Terraform.
yeah. No more folder is Terraform, CD Terraform, yes.
Mhm. So it initialize it and plugs
Initializing
into
everything, yeah.
to it. Note firstly, if you look at this thing as finding this on version this.
Okay,
You guys see it on that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it will now install that version of Terraform
Mm-hmm.
Azure this thing. So now there's another thing again I want you guys to see in here. Thanks for catching up in class. I really appreciate you guys for it.
All right, man.
Okay, so we have this in this Terraform change log. So you may get to an organization whereby you need to understand these change logs very well. You understand?
Okay. Can
Because
you just help us drop this link so that
okay, let me do that
yes,
for you.
thank you, sir.
Okay, so that's about it. That one. Um, so so after that you have Terraform format. So why I use Terraform format is just to get my code uh formatted. Just you can use Terraform FMT. You get it?
Hmm.
It formats the code
Yeah,
for you to a very good view. After that, you have Terraform validate.
validate.
So in that validate, it confirms for you what are the things that are missing in your code, what are the things you ought to do right, and fix in well. So name may only contain alphabet character data. Terraform test. Okay. Sorry, I used space instead. Let me just put Terraform test. Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah,
Good. After that, you have your Terraform plan.
man.
So now I want to show you something under this Terraform plan. So you can say Terraform plan out. So when you do plan, you can do some other operations with it. You understand? You can out
Yeah,
plan file. I'm going to show you how to do it again. Okay. So it's still running Terraform plan. I don't know why. It's just a resource group. I don't know why it's taking this long. So okay, let me put it up. Terraform plan. So it's showing me that okay, when if this code runs, this is what it will create. It will create only one resource, and that resource is my resource group. You can see it. Now, one thing I want you to look at, please, this last line here, please be very careful when you are running it so you could confirm what is
okay,
going to happen. What does add means? Add means that the new resources that will be created.
okay.
You understand? Change means that
Hmm.
resources that were existing will be updated.
Okay, edit. Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
Destroy means that that resource will be removed.
Okay.
Please, do you understand what I just explained?
Yeah. Yes, I understand. Yeah.
Good. So before you run any Terraform, before you run any Terraform apply, please read through the Terraform plan very well. I mean it. Do you understand? I literally mean it.
Yes, sir.
So one of the reasons why I'm saying is that I have I have seen situations whereby people run Terraform apply without reading through Terraform plan, and the next thing you are seeing is that you are seeing some resources being deleted in the process. And when you ask them that what happened, they will say they don't know. You understand? I don't know. It's not
Yes, sir.
a very good excuse that you want to be given. Now, after that, you can now output your plan. You understand? You can output your
Yeah.
plan, Terraform plan. I would say that look at search for this thing. Let me drop it. Terraform plan uh, output as text file, so it can be readable for you. If you do the plan outside just like that, it's going to form something called a TVAS file. So that TVAS file, you may not be able to read it, the content of the file. So just output it as a plain text. This is Terraform
Okay.
output plain text. Terraform output plain text. That's all what you need. You understand? So it is going to output the your plan as a plain text. This is
Context.
what
Okay.
I'll let me drop it in the group for you guys. Mm, hold on. Okay. So now let me now show you how it works. Terraform, the same Terraform plan that I ran before. This time around, I'm running it as a plain text. I want to get the plain text of this Terraform plan. Yes,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
so let it do it. So it's going to save the Terraform plan in this file. So this file is what you submit to your superiors. They will review the code, say that okay, no, 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 this thing, go and update this one before you run Terraform apply. Please, do you understand? Ensure that
Yes, sir. Yes,
please
sir.
submit your Terraform uh, uh, plan.tx and txt file for your cloud architects or something for them to review it, so you can see
Okay.
before you run the apply.
Before we run the apply, we should give the senior architect to review.
Yes.
Okay. How do we give him to review? How do we give him the format, the document to
So
review?
so you just copy this plan.tx file.
Okay. Plan the text file. Okay. Okay.
You see
Okay.
this file here. So
Yeah.
that's why I
Yeah.
output
Yeah.
it. I output my Terraform plan to a TX
Okay.
file.
Okay.
It's a text file. So when I output it as a text file, I can give it to anybody to read. That person
Okay.
doesn't need to see my code. From this one, a professional architect knows definitely that this is what is going to happen if this code runs. The person
Okay.
will see what will be destroyed, will see what will be changed, and say, okay, please don't change this thing. Go and update that code. Because of
Okay.
I've seen situations whereby the architect actually rejected it.
Wow.
He
Why? Okay. Just
rejected the code.
rejected the resources created.
Yeah, he rejected the Terraform plan that
Okay. The
go and
plan. Okay.
update it. This resource cannot be destroyed. Can't find an alternative to it because it wanted to destroy like one or two resources, create a
Okay.
new one. And the architect
Okay.
said no. So later on in the class, I will teach you guys how to import existing file into Terraform.
Okay.
You understand? Sometimes you don't need to
Oh,
recreate a resource in Azure. You
mm,
just import that resource into Terraform.
okay.
We'll get to that advanced place in the class.
Advanced Terraform. Okay.
Yeah. So this is just the essential part, and after that, just do Terraform apply. So I don't think I'm logged into any. Please just ensure you are logged into. Um, I don't know if I am logged in to any cloud platform.
Cloud platform.
Let it load. Okay, I'm logged into this one. Yeah. So let's log in. Still loading. Still loading, and okay. So I just have only one subscription, and that's it. Okay. After that, you run your Terraform apply. So it's when you create a resource group in Azure. So I will show you guys how to apply. So when it tells you to apply, it tells you that you input yes. Do you want it to continue? You input yes, and it's created the resource. It continues to deploy the resource. Also, sometimes you can just put Terraform apply auto approve if you don't want to write yes after the plan. You have to just put auto approve. So here I'm writing yes,
Approve.
but I will drop the code for auto approve again for you. This is it. Let me drop it for you on the chat. Terraform apply auto approve. So I've dropped it for you guys on the chat. So now it will create my resource group in my subscription. So any question from this um, one, we just explain to them.
Okay, any questions? Okay, no. So one thing I just learned is the adding of this plan text. I didn't know about that, but it's very interesting. So I, moving forward, I intend to look for ways to add it to things I'm building.
Okay, that's
Yeah, thank
good.
you very much, sir. Yes, sir.
That's good. Okay, let's go to this new resource group we just created.
Okay.
Um, so we created a new resource group called Terraform test. So this resource group we created Terraform. So now I just want to ask a question based on this little one we just did today. Um, in comparison of ARM templates, Biceps, and Terraform, which one do you feel convenient to use?
So Terraform all the way. Terraform declarative and easy to read, and I think it does some other things which I've not even discovered yet. But it's easy
Mm,
to read and straightforward.
straightforward.
Creating different modules, straightforward. It's very straightforward.
I
Terraform
mean,
is
it's
good.
Terraform.
Okay, for you Terraform also. So that is, I have been in interviews where they ask the same question. You understand? They ask this question: which one will you prefer to use between Terraform,
Yeah.
Biceps, and ARM templates? I choose Terraform. And when we get to the automation part of this process using GitHub Actions, you will see that it's even more easy to use. So that's it for
Mm.
today's class. So next week, what we will talk about in Terraform, we will talk about uh, variables. So we'll talk about the input. There's something called input, output, and variables. Understand?
Variables. Okay.
You understand? So
Yes, sir.
we'll talk about that one. So maybe other time we will not talk about the more advanced stage of using modules.
Okay.
That one will be in the advanced class. But Now let's
Okay.
start with this elementary one that everybody can work with. Today I just worked on
Yeah.
majorly main.tf file. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very
Yes, sir.
much. Any question before
Thank you
we
very
call
much,
it
sir.
a day?